Hello, everyone. Welcome to Philosophy Presents, our fourth event in our Philosophy Presents series, Meaning During Times of Crisis. I'm so thrilled to see you all here. I think that this is an urgent time to reflect on our values, to recenter ourselves in what matters to us. For me, this event couldn't have come at a better, or I guess worse time. This week has been a very tough week for me, and so I'm just so happy to be able to have this conversation with you to help me, right? To help me to remind myself of what it is that I care about, what my ideals are, what it is that I'm striving for, to give me strength as we have to get through the end of this semester and then on through the rest of the academic year. I'm not sure that it's going to get easier, but we are in this together. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you a slideshow that I have made. I hope that you enjoyed the slideshow of quotes at the beginning. I have this one for you, so give me just a second. There we go. Okay, are you able to see my slideshow? Well, everybody's good? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger. All right, so our event is Meaning During Times of Crisis. This is the fourth in our Philosophy Presents series. Just for a couple of words at the very beginning about conversation etiquette, you want to make sure that you're listening. So keep yourself muted unless you have the floor, and use the caption feature. So if you haven't seen the caption feature on Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, you are able to put on captions. So if the audio is funny, if you're having a hard time following along, you can use the caption feature, and it auto populates what the person is saying. I find it a lovely feature. I'm glad that they put it on there. So use that. Make sure that you're able to listen. Also, let's try to build some community. So definitely use the chat function. I kept that enabled. It will be enabled throughout the entire meeting. So let's talk. Let's discuss ideas. Let's use that opportunity. Make sure that while doing that, we're also showing respect, right? Show others the care and consideration that they deserve and that also you deserve to be treated with. Make sure that you're questioning. So that's why we're here. We're philosophers. That's what we do. If you have a question, if you have an insight, please do. Don't hesitate to share your thoughts. There's a lot of people here. We've got 82 participants. Yay! And I know that they are here because they want to hear from other people. They want to be part of this community. So let's definitely share our questions. But also privacy, right? Let's take privacy seriously. If you don't want to be recorded, make sure you turn off your video. And that's it. That's my etiquette. those are my rules. So let me go on to our next slide. There we go. So we have an agenda today. So I just went through welcome and our etiquette. Then I want to do what's called a community recitation. And I'll talk about that in a second, but that's what we're going to do. Hopefully together, community recitation of I am here. Then we'll do panelist introductions. We've got 3 panelists today. They're incredible. I can't wait to introduce them to you. Then we'll have 2 series of presentations. Each of our panelists has chosen a meaningful quote about the search for meaning that they wanted to share with you and talk a little bit about. Then we have a series of questions that I developed for each one of our panelists about how philosophy can help us to address our current crises, the multiple crises that we are facing right now. Then we'll have chance for audience question and answer. That's where you can use the chat function. If you want to unmute yourself, I'll give you that capability. I still want you to use the chat function to get in line, just in case there are multiple people who might want to talk at once. Then we'll do final remarks and, of course, an invitation to our philosophy classes. This event is partially about introducing you to what it is that ethics and the philosophy of religion can do in terms of your educational journey. So if what we're talking about today, if this interests you, then please do consider signing up for those classes. And at the end of the event, I'll project some flyers for more information. Okay. So here's what I want to do now. And this is an experiment, so we'll see how this goes. But I want to do what's called a community recitation. And what's going to happen is that I'm going to unmute. I'm going to give you the ability to unmute yourself. I want everybody, all 84 of us, to unmute ourselves. And then for 30 seconds, and I'll set a timer on my phone, for 30 seconds, we're going to say, I am here. And I'm anticipating this is going to be messy. I don't think we're going to be on time with one another, but I think that's actually part of the beauty of it. So if you're with me on this, what I'm going to do now is I am going to see if I can unmute everybody. Let's see if I can unmute everybody. I can. So I've allowed all of you to unmute yourselves. I'm going to invite you all to unmute. Okay.
I'm here.
All right.
I'm
So
here.
I'm here.
I'm here.
I'm here.
I'm here.
I'm
here.
I'm
I'm
here.
here.
I am here.
I'm here.
I am here.
I'm here.
I am here. I am here.
I'm here.
I am here.
I am here.
I am
I
here.
am here.
I am
I
here.
am
I
here.
am here.
I am
Am
here.
here.
I am here.
I am
I
here.
am
I am
here.
I am here. I am here.
Here.
I am here. Okay. Amazing. So that was incredible. I wonder how you thought about it. Hold on just a second. Okay. So that was 30 seconds. I am here. We are here. We are here together. And yes, it was a little bit messy, and yes, we were not in time together, but isn't that kind of a good metaphor for democracy, for the conversations that we're going to be having, like in the philosophical agora, right? The marketplace of ideas. So thank you for doing that with me. I thought that was really powerful. All right, so let's move on to our next slide. Okay, so let me go ahead and introduce our speakers. So let me find our first speaker is Dr. Dana Trousseau. And what I recommend is, even though I have this projected as a full screen, I recommend that you make it not full screen, so that way you can see Dana, Dr. Trousseau, talking at the same time as you can view this quote that she has chosen to share with everyone. So let's see, I've got to find Dana in here. There you are.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here. And kind of like Dr. Carr was saying earlier, you know, this is not an easy time. It's not an easy time for anyone. And it is really heartwarming to see everyone here. It's really important, I think, to be able to share these experiences together. Okay, so the quote that I wanted to share with you is from Viktor Frankl, He was a survivor of the Holocaust, and even though I was acquainted with some of his ideas about how to create meaning in a world that seems completely meaningless, before the pandemic, I had never actually read the book Man's Search for Meaning. So that was when all of this, first started happening in March. That was the book that I turned to, and it was able to provide not necessarily a sense of comfort, but a sense of how to keep moving forward. So the quote here is, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. So although we are living through a time of great uncertainty and some fear about the future and about the state of our loved ones, our lives, upended and kind of turned upside down very suddenly. We also face an opportunity to reevaluate what we consider to be normal, to reflect on the values that serve as a foundation for our judgments about the world, about others, even about ourselves, to examine the goals that drive us forward. What is our goal? What do we want out of life? Why are we here? The world will not provide answers to that, maybe that are satisfactory to you, but meaning is found in answering these questions on our own, in community with others, but really each of us has to actively answer these questions for our own lives. To look at our actions and ask if what we do corresponds with what we value. To slow down and remind ourselves of what is truly important. Philosophy does not provide a quick fix with easy answers. It doesn't. It gives us some different types of answers, but philosophy is not there just to provide a set of meanings that one has to choose from as if you were at a buffet. But it's a sampling of ideas that one explores together in deep reflection, challenge, which is very challenging and also uncomfortable. But you know what? We're living in times that have made us deeply uncomfortable. And so the best thing we can do with that discomfort is to use that as an opportunity for transformation, for self-transformation. Philosophy does open up a space to question everything. No question, no topic is is sacred, right? Every topic is worthy of doubt and questioning. To challenge ourselves, to have the courage to question foundational beliefs about what is good and what is bad, what's right and what is wrong. So in my ethics and moral issues class, sometimes when we begin the semester, students think that we are going to dedicate our time to demonstrating why kind of everyone else is wrong, which is kind of interesting because it is easier to do that. It's easier to demonstrate why another person's choice is wrong, and it doesn't really affect us. We just get to kind of point a finger. But I think this kind of perspective does seed our frustration with the world, where we question why others do the things that they do. Why would someone not wear a mask in public, right? So it's like we're looking at other people and questioning their decisions, and it actually breeds that sense of frustration and anger that we are all confronted with at this time. So what philosophy can do is, by opening up everything to questioning, it lends itself to shifting one's perspective. So instead of pointing a finger, holding out a hand. Why do you think this way? Where are you coming from? Philosophy can shift one's perspective from blame to having a sense of responsibility, from being angry to being more compassionate, from despair to curiosity. It's the same world, but what is the perspective that we're coming from, navigating that world? How am I doing on time?
You've run out of time, but
okay.
You finished your thought. It's okay.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Trousseau. I think that you're right about the things that philosophy can do for us. And one of the things that I keep hearing during this pandemic is this is unprecedented, right? There's no blueprint, right, for what's happening. But in fact, this isn't unprecedented. There are other people who have experienced crisis in the past, and multiple crises in the past, and those people have written philosophically. So what have they said, right? How can we use what they say as a blue map for us? I'm going to introduce our next speaker now. So we have Fabian, who is a philosophy major, who has chosen to share this quote from John Stuart Mill, famous utilitarian. And Fabian, I'll let you take it from here. Oh, sorry, Fabian.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Carr, for having me. Thank you, Dr. Trousseau, for bringing me in. I appreciate it. When I first came to LaGuardia, the reason I came was because I was in the pursuit of happiness. I found my life like it wasn't filled, and I always thought that happiness was something that I had to constantly think about and strive for or try to be. And I was looking at it all wrong. And when I think of John Stuart Mill, when I was starting to study him in ethics, and when I saw this, it really resonated with me because, let's go into the quote. So, those only are happy, Mill thought, who have their minds fixed on some object other than their own happiness, on the happiness of others, on the improvement of mankind, even on some art or pursuit, follow not as a means, but as itself an ideal end. And the way I took it, I think it's, clear. I don't know, it's up for interpretation, of course, but it's just the fact that when you stop focusing on trying to be happy, you start becoming happy. You find happiness in helping other people. You find happiness in pursuing education like I have. Thankfully, when I came to major in philosophy, and I met wonderful professors like Dr. Trousseau, I found this love for asking questions, and I opened my mind to infinite possibilities on what happiness really is. And every day during this pandemic, if it wasn't for what I've learned through ethics and through my other philosophy courses and this critical thinking that I was able to start working on, I don't know if I would be able to navigate this tough time like as well as I think I did. I think I did pretty good. I was able to focus. I was 6 months locked down. I was very not going anywhere. And I'm sure some people can relate here, only essential items. I'm still like that, really. So I was able to focus on, my family and making sure they're happy. And when they get happy, when I could see them, enjoying our times together and their education and love, it automatically brings me joy. But the moment that I think about like my happiness, I'm not happy anymore. I don't know. It's weird. You shouldn't focus. The whole point of Mill right here is that focusing on happiness, trying to be happy, will essentially lead you to unhappiness. And focusing on others, focusing on bettering yourself is where true happiness lies.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment, and I think is very, very helpful and important right now. I'm going to go ahead and let's see. I want to spotlight our next speaker, Dr. Emmanuel Narti. Dr. Narti, if you wouldn't mind starting your video.
Yes.
so that I can, oh, excellent. So that I can spotlight you for everybody. Here you are.
Hi, everyone.
Find people. And I'm going to give you your quote.
All right. Thank you for coming. I would like to reflect on this quote, which is from Albert Camus, a French philosopher, which I believe some of you know from your philosophy classes in discussing existentialism, which sometimes seem to be taken to mean an attempt to find meaning in a meaningless world, which is indifferent. But there is another side to that idea, which I think is more important and relevant to what we are discussing today, which is the idea that we can create our own meaning, create our own projects once we affirm our freedom, and we can do a lot more and not depend on what we're looking for from the outside. Okay, so Camus was somebody who suffered adversity himself. He grew up poor in Algeria. He endured the Second World War, and he died in a car accident. But he had his own moments of victory also. He was a Pulitzer Prize author, and most of his works are very known to students in literature and philosophy, The Stranger, The Plague in particular. But today I want to talk about the myth of Sisyphus. His life as well a struggle, okay? All of us here can attest to the fact that this pandemic has restricted it in so many ways in which you consider life to be burdensome. All our plans are gone, okay? Wanted to go on vacation in the summer, they're gone. Graduations, weddings, going out with friends, dinner, etc. They are all gone. They all seem to be like what? Tumbling down like a rock from a steep hill. So Sisyphus was a king who found himself on the wrong side of the gods, and he was punished, condemned to eternally roll a rock or a boulder up to the hill, only to find it tumble down as soon as he approaches the summit. And that was a perpetual punishment. There's no end to it. Roll up the rock with all the sweat and the toil and the pressure, all the strain, and hope that you are going to get to the top and have some joy, respite, or peace, only to see it roll all the way back to the very bottom. And of course, then you have to return and continue the same effort over and over again. There's some boredom in it. But Camus suggests that our task here is not to look at this as what? A futile attempt, but there is some inner joy that is involved in just embracing the rock, the difficulty, the challenges, the pandemic that we go through. And that inner joy is very important because it is liberating. We can affirm our freedom and say, well, even though this thing is going nowhere, this is my task. Okay? I am going to embrace it. I am going to persevere. I am not going to give up. I'm not going to dwell on the past because the past is gone, unpreventable. He was on the wrong side of the gods. There's no way he could change the past. I'm not even going to worry about the future, but I can content myself with the fact that I have a certain capacity. What is that capacity? Freedom. You can create your own meaning out of what appears to be meaninglessness or futility. And not only that, you can also begin to interpret and give meaning to what you are going through. So that consciousness and awareness that maybe there's no help from outside, and also the recognition that you have some resources within you to be able to do something, even in the face of futility, allows you to accept the situation, embrace it with courage, bravery, with hope, and to be able to cope with it and create your meaning out of it. And that I think is very essential as we reflect on what we are going through now. So in a way, we are all Sisyphuses, rolling our rocks, or at least called upon to face our challenges and not give up. Face them, make the most out of them, and be persistent, and not give up to circumstantial disappointment. Rather, take these opportunities or problems as what? Opportunities for growth and improvement. And that's how we create meaning for ourselves and make sense of life without relying on the meaning coming from culture or religion or authorities or the gods. We have that capacity, but having the capacity is not enough. We have to actualize it in Aristotelian terms. We have to use it, exercise it. And that's where the inner joy comes from, embracing the task and not running away from it. And in fact, we'll not be talking about Kimish today if he had run away from that task in much the same way as we'll not be talking about Socrates in philosophy today if he had run away into exile in a cradle. So it is important for us to embrace the task, make sense out of it, persist, and never give up. You have some time left?
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Thank you so much, Dr. Narcy. These are beautiful reflections on the myth of Sisyphus. I would like to highlight Dr. Trousseau for our next question, which is, how do we make meaning when the future feels so uncertain? And this question is one that when I formulated it, I was thinking about the climate crisis. And people often say that the climate crisis is an existential crisis. And I think partially they say that because it's a crisis that threatens our existence. But I also think it's a crisis that threatens our sense of where meaning comes from, right? Our sense of how we orient ourselves to the future. As both Dr. Narcy, Sabian, as well as Dr. Trousseau have talked about from their quotes. So Dr. Trousseau, can you speak to this a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to also reflect what Dr. Narty was saying about the myth of Sisyphus. It's when we take our meaning from external sources, from the world around us, when the world around us changes, we can fall into despair. So because we cannot control necessarily everything that happens in the world around us, but we can control our response to what happens to us. So when I think of what to do to make meaning, it all comes back to this idea of change and personal transformation. And how can philosophy, which is defined as the love of wisdom, help us to create meaning for ourselves? First of all, the love of wisdom is active, right? It's not passive. Love is an action. It's not simply a feeling, as the lovely Bell Hooks has said. So when we're thinking about generating meaning, we have to take the reins, right? We have to really become aware of who we are and what we want in order to make the change that we want to see in the world. So how does philosophy create that environment that lends itself to transformation? Well, in ethics and moral issues, it's identifying the fact that one of the things that makes us unique as beings is our ability to make moral choices, our ability to look at both sides of a problem, to creatively brainstorm solutions to solve that problem, and to do that in community together. So the idea that we are each moral agents, we have the power to create meaning in our lives by reflecting on what we value, what we want, and then to take the necessary action in order to make those things happen. We have the ability to understand competing definitions of good, examining both sides of challenging problems and drawing a reasonable conclusion. So that's kind of the goal of ethics and moral issues, is as a community together, we practice those skills, how to think about ideas in a different way from different perspectives, looking at both sides with equal weight, trying to be as objective as possible without being, and by objective, I mean not being biased and not being motivated by our own experiences, but being open-minded. Philosophy allows one to listen attentively to others, especially when in disagreement. What other class could you possibly imagine where the professor is like, please challenge me? Like, everything I say is not going to be right. Come on, bring it. So and instead of that being an atmosphere of competition, right, of aggression, it's one of, come on, let's play. And so even though we're living through this time of uncertainty, it holds a mirror up to us and says, who are you? What do you want out of life? How do you want to move forward? Do you consent to the beliefs that you have? That was one thing in my ethics class. I remember a student said, I never consented to believe that this is good or this is bad. I never actually agreed with the values that I have. And so taking the time to kind of step back and say, what are my values? What motivates me? What are my actions? And what values do those represent? And do I consent? And to be able to do that with others. I know one thing, when I personally have thought about what things that I value in life, and for the first time, I'm answering community. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, like we're at a community college, but and I actually watched the show Community, which is about a community college, because I missed being with people, and being in these environments where I am challenged every day by the conversations that come out of the classroom, and students are too. But the fact that we can do that together, this is really what the love of wisdom means. It's being in a community of people with different perspectives that can come together, listen to each other, challenge each other, put a little pressure on those ideas, and then come to, conclusions that will affect the way that you choose to live your life. So a time of crisis can actually be a really good time for reflection. What beliefs give your life meaning? Do you consent to those beliefs? Did you come to those beliefs and attitudes and ideas on your own terms? Were those given to you? It's okay to take a step back and say, I don't know where these beliefs came from, but I want to evaluate each and every one. And that doesn't mean you destroy them, right? That doesn't mean you just give them away, or you're never going to think about them again, or they were all wrong, but come to that conclusion on your own. That's something I also encourage students to do in philosophy of religion. It doesn't mean a rejection of your religious beliefs. It means thinking about them actively and determining whether or not those beliefs correspond to your values and the meaning that you create in your life.
Thank you so much, Dr. Trousseau. These are really lovely reflections on, how we can make meaning in the present, right? Instead of focusing so much on 10 or 20 years in the future. Let's see. Now I'm going to be moving our spotlight over to Dr. Narti. And Dr. Narti, we have a question for you.
Yes.
And that question is, how might the philosophical study of religion help heal the divisions in our country today?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Carr, for that question. One of the things we learned as we study philosophy is the fact that philosophy offers us a toolkit, portable, transferable skills that we can use in very many situations, especially in dealing with problems, analyzing issues, evaluating them, making sense out of them. And even if we are not able to change them, at least we can alter our perspective or reframe questions to make sense out of them. Talking about division implies that we have a problem. So one way you could go is, well, how do I use my problem-solving skills to tackle this problem? We can begin on the small scale, individual levels, Okay, it always begins with the individual. It's one person. Okay, we have issues with one another from time to time. Siblings disagree, family members disagree, spouses disagree. Sometimes I'll say, okay, tell my sister I'm not going to talk to you again, and I pick up the phone, and then we start laughing. Forget about everything. It's all over. It's gone. But it takes courage, okay, to say, okay, I'm going to send you a letter. I say, I'm sorry. It takes courage to send an email or to make a phone call. Because sometimes we dwell on maybe my pride or I am right, it has to come from the other side. And then we end up what? Paralysis. We don't make any progress. And then we are eaten up by what? Anger and trapped by imprisonment. And it just destroys us in the end. It's like a parasite, destroys us. So if there are divisions, clearly we want to heal the divisions. And one of the things we can do to heal the divisions, I'm using philosophy as a resource, think about that moral virtue of courage that I mentioned. Okay, we studied intellectual and moral virtues in Aristotle and so many other philosophers. Okay, which is what? A mean between two extremes. You don't want to be a coward, and you don't also want to be reckless and foolhardy. So Aristotle suggests that what? You go for the extreme. Sorry, the mean between the two extremes. What that's the virtue of courage. Now, we need to begin with what philosophy is essentially about, okay? The truth. There's no way we are going to come together and make progress if we don't acknowledge the truth. And part of what we do in philosophy is what? The search for the truth, okay? But the truth requires courage because the truth is painful. It can hurt. Sometimes you don't want to hurt people's feelings, so you say things in other ways, and you don't want to confront them. But reconciliation is going to require that we speak the truth, we tell the truth. One of our greatest leaders here, MLK, Martin Luther King, said, well, the moral arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. So that's what we're striving for in this country. Okay, we've made a lot of progress, but there's still room for improvement. And there are lots of division. The pandemic has exposed a number of them. They existed before the pandemic. There are divisions that go all the way back to slavery, racial divisions. There are disparities in economics and job opportunities, gender, etc. And so what we need to do is, these are the problems we have. What are our objectives? Do we want justice? Do we want a recognition? Do we want a reparation? Or do we just want to make peace? Okay, sometimes you may not be able to tackle all of them, so at least you rank them, and then you choose the ones that are more salient, more important. That's you prioritize them. And then you ask, how am I going to achieve these goals? So think about ways in which you can do it. Now, our current president-elect, Biden, has recently said that America needs what? Healing. It's a time for healing and division. And in fact, it was appealing to the words spoken by Abraham Lincoln, who adopted the words of scripture years ago, that what? A nation divided against itself cannot stand. And those words are very important. So we need to come together because what unites us is more than what divides us. So we also need to learn to respect other people, respect the rule of law, and look at the ways in which we can work together. Because one of the things we find in political theory, especially in Aristotle, is what? We are political animals. We are human beings who are made for the state, for a community. We need contact, we need each other. We can only realize our fullest potentials in a community. And it says what? If there's somebody out there who cannot live in a state, he must either be a beast or a god. Because by nature, that's who we are. We are designed to live in a state and realize our fullest potentials in the community. So we need communities, we need one another. And that we've had tensions in our country between individualism, we have our rights. I care about myself and you don't want to really pay any attention to the other person. Well, that guy is poor, he's suffering. Well, it's not my problem. No, we owe a lot to each other. We have obligations, responsibilities towards one another. Okay, and we have to think about what unites us and what brings us together. That's very important. So what we need to do is say, which of these goals or objectives we have do we need to tackle first. We rank them, and then we devise ways of approaching them. We can start on individual levels. We can start by adopting some models that have worked in some countries. South Africa adopted what is called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission after the end of apartheid. Our neighbors in Canada adopted a similar method that ended in, I think, 2015 in dealing with religious land issues involving the Indians. Some people have been calling for that maybe this is the time for that. It means bringing people together, allowing them in public to speak out, to discuss their problems, okay? And then see who is wrong and who is not wrong, and how, and find ways of find a consensus for moving forward. Sometimes we just need an apology. Sometimes it may involve some form of atonement or payment, but at least we know how we've wronged one another on individual and global or national levels. And we are interested in doing the difficult task of healing. So healing is possible only when we have the desire to be healed. We have the willingness to engage in that difficult task and also speak the uncomfortable truths that have been exposed by the pandemic and also our history. So I believe that is the way to go. There are no definite ways of doing it, but there are models that I've cited that I think can work, but it all begins with each and every one of us. Let the peace begin with me, begin with you, and I think we can extend it, and in that way, bring or heal the wounds of division that our country really needs. And also remember that you cannot do it alone, and I cannot do it alone. We need one another. So let's come together, let's unite, and let's make peace and move towards our shared goal of what? Realizing a more perfect union.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nartey. I get chills listening to you speak. I want to give our last question to Fabian, and I'm going to spotlight you, Fabian. And your question is, what is an important value you've learned from the study of ethics and philosophy of religion that helped you process and persevere during these times of multiple overlapping crises?
When I see this question, I think of a lot of that multiple overlapping crises. I mean, we really are facing several things at once right now, you know, from the pandemic to you know, civil unrest amongst you know, the separation that Dr. Nartey was talking about with our country from global climate. And I'm lucky to be a student of the philosophy department because it allowed me to really have sympathy for opposing positions. You know, so when I think of like ethics and what is right, you know, there's so many different views. I think of Kant's categorical imperatives, right? And like Dr. Nartey was talking about, like, you know, one of them is talking about how we should be acting as if how we want to universalize a law. I'm trying to like say it in my own words, I'm sorry. But, you know, we're trying to, the way we want to behave is how we see other people's behavior, essentially, right? And if I can't expect the community around me to treat me well if I don't treat them well, you know, it's like treat others how you treat yourself. So that's like one big thing I got from ethics. As far as philosophy of religion, the leap of faith, I mean, is really holds dear to me. I'm a little religious, but not so much. But even if you don't believe in God, you can have a leap of faith in yourself. You can have a leap of faith in your community, in our country, and in people. You know, and just because most people are good. You know, and that's what I came to when I'm here in LaGuardia. I realized like all these people around me are generally good people, or they have usually good intentions. I've never meet bad people, and I always lead with that. I always lead when I meet somebody. I know that they most of the time want to be a good person, and I try to live like that myself. And I just think, the philosophy department should just opening my eyes to stuff like that, and these classes that I've taken, I'm sure other philosophy students, they can relate to that too. And if you're not taking philosophy yet, you need to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fabian. I want to open up this discussion to our audience now. So I'm going to stop sharing here, but I'm wondering what your questions are. And I'm going to allow everyone to unmute themselves if they choose. And let's see if I can see in the chat.
I have not a question, but more of a statement that I would like to bring to the floor to like get some feedback on in regards to myself and what I've heard throughout this topic that we're having, discussion that we're having.
Excellent. I'm looking for you, David.
I hope everyone.
in
Oh, okay. I hope everyone can hear me.
Oh, there you are.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this the pandemic that we've been going through for the past, I mean, it's pretty much been a year, and it definitely has me like thinking about myself in a lot of aspects. And I've been thinking about things in regards to my future or even my current self right now. When I was in college, in LaGuardia, physically at LaGuardia, I was happy with myself and like everything was fine and dandy. And then pandemic happened, and then we have to distance ourselves. We have to be by ourselves, and that's where I have a lot of problems. And I like dealing with myself. I feel like that's the hardest part of my life, as in like having to look at myself and having to change things about myself that I don't like. So I've been pretty much going through like some existential crises like throughout these past couple of months. So it's mainly because I feel like I thrive when I'm helping others. And when I was in that college setting, I could throw myself into those type of situations where I'm constantly helping myself. I mean, not sorry, constantly helping other people. And it's just like once you're here by yourself without the means of actually doing something like that, you really can't help people as much as you were able to help them. So it's just along the lines of like I'm trying to find some type of meaning now in like the entire situation that we're going through pretty much.
That's a beautiful reflection, David, and I think it connects with a lot of the things that, in particular, that Dr. Trousseau was saying. Do our panelists, does anyone want to respond to David, or should we move on to the next question?
I can say a few words. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, David. In the first place, it's a good thing that you are interested in helping other people. Okay. We all need people who are willing to help those who are in need. It's a good thing. But help can come in so many different forms. In the digital age, you don't have to be physically present to do some of the things that we like doing, even though some of us prefer contact, face to face. Okay. So while the pandemic has taken so long, but we know it's going to end at some point anyway, it's going to end. So in the meantime, think about other ways in which you can be of help to reach out to people, maybe into social media, make connections, make a phone call, and be present rather than being absent, even though you may not be able to do it physically. And then also realize one of the interesting quotes I was like from a theologian called Reinhold Niebuhr is what? He gives us what is called a serenity prayer. Okay, and the essence is this: just give me the serenity, asking God in this case, to change the things that I can, to accept the things that I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. So there are certain things that we cannot change, but those that we can change, let's be innovative, find ways of doing that, regardless of the difficulties in which we find ourselves right now. So think about ways in which you can be more innovative in reaching out to people, just like we are present here. Okay, there are so many other ways in which you can make those connections, social media, especially in the digital age, so that geography does not become a problem for us. If the will is there, there is always a way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much,
I'd like,
Dr. Nardi. Go ahead.
Professor, Dr. Carr?
I'd like to just add something to David's response. I mean, I have to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, David, everything that you said, like, I definitely commiserate with. I think we're both very goal-driven people. Right? So
Yeah,
it's like when we have a
definitely.
goal and it's like, this is what I need to do today. This is what I need to do tomorrow. This is how I'm going to help people. Yeah, that is definitely part of the meaning that I have in my life. It's very hard for me to be in the present moment. And that's something that it's, you know, coming face to face with my own kind of emotions and maybe discomfort with those emotions and discomfort with not having a set goal and not having the same world. It's kind of turned my world upside down too. And and I think that's why I gravitated to this idea of community. How can we find joy in our community in the present moment? Right? Without having to feel like, well, I have to perform in some way. I have to accomplish something. I think many people during the pandemic are like freaking out because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not being productive.
Yeah,
I should,
that
people
exactly.
are doing things and creating things and writing books. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get through every day, day by day. I don't know. Does that resonate with anyone else? That's what I just wanted to add.
Resonates.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely agree as well.
So I wanted to give the next question to Timothy. So Timothy, I'm going to ask you to unmute and I'm going to spotlight you.
Hi, thanks for having me. Dr. Narti mentioned like Aristotle's assertions on like the necessity of like community, and that relates heavily to my question. So I'd like to start off my question with a bit of background, and that is that I think we can all agree that religion is still something that varies in definition. Oftentimes that gets called like the problem of religion or the question of religion, I think. If I'm gonna propose a distinction here, one set of approaches to religion is oriented around the collectiveness of human beings. So this is like anthropological, sociological, political, even economical approaches. On the other hand, religion can also be approached through the lens of the individual, through phenomenology, psychology, evolutionary psychology, and like neurology and cognitive science. So my question, in light of today's topic, is I guess like I haven't technically phrased this two questions, but bear with me. What are the pros and cons to both the collective and the individual lens of studying religion? And in terms of trying to establish meaning in life, should we steer towards organized religion or should we advocate for individual spirituality?
Thank you so much for your question, Timothy. Does one of our panelists want to respond to this question about individual religion versus collective types of religion?
Okay, Timothy, that's a good question. It's very, very difficult to give an all-embracing, unifying definition of religion. And that is why Alston reminds us that we should rather focus on what religion-making characteristics. But coming to your question, I mean, personally, I don't think we have to go disjunctive. It's not a question of either or, because when you talk about a collective, what do you mean? It's composed of what? Individuals, okay? You cannot have a composition without parts. But what we need to work on is how those parts are related. And if the parts are weak, the bonds are weak, think about ways in which we can strengthen those bonds. That is the way I think we should go. We fight a lot and defend in many ways our individual rights in this country and in many other democracies, but we also abide by what? Community norms. We don't allow everybody to decide how much they should pay in taxes, okay? But we work it out and say, okay, this is what will work for the community. So I don't think the way to go is to look at what appears to be this Hegelian dialectical opposition between thesis and antithesis. Even if you go around that path, think about ways in which you might arrive at what? Some synthesis between what? The individual and the collective. Can you think about some synthesis? Because they are not necessarily or mutually exclusive. You cannot have a community without individuals. It's the individuals that make up the community. But if you are thinking about it in terms of maybe soteriology, salvation, okay, eschatology at the end of time, how do I give an account? In that way, fine, everybody will say, well, just focus on the individual, because we are not going to give a collective account. Every individual is going to give account of his or her stewardship. So it begins with the individual, but like I said, we are social beings. We must always strive to reach out to the others and work together. That's very, very important. So both options are viable and they are not mutually exclusive, and we should find ways of strengthening the bonds and link between the individual and the community, because neither can exist without the other.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Narthi. I think that this actually connects to the question that Richard added into our chat. Richard is wondering how we can reconcile science and religion, where it seems like in the cultural dialogue right now, those have been opposed to one another. And Richard's wondering, right, how do we respond to that? And I know Dr. Narthi actually has an entire series on the relationship between philosophy and religion. So I know he can speak to that. I want to give our other panelists an opportunity to speak as well if they feel strongly about jumping in on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to say that, you know, I'm also very invested in this, this idea that philosophy, science, and religion should be in conversation with one another, rather than kind of staking their sides on opposite ends and never the twain shall meet. So that's one of the beauties of philosophy, is that there's this idea that it's okay to have these conversations where there are differing opinions, but coming together in conversation, we can highlight what are the things that we believe that are different, and do we have any fundamental assumptions that are the same? And oftentimes there is more similarities than differences. So I mean, with in philosophy of religion, we almost talk about science as much as we talk about religion. And Fabian is currently taking my philosophy of religion class. So I'm wondering what he would like to say about the intersection of philosophy, science, and religion. And if you thought that was kind of strange in a philosophy of religion class to be talking about the Big Bang, and and it's like, wait, I thought in religion, you're not supposed to talk about evolution, science, the Big Bang, cosmology. So yeah, Fabian, if you'd like to jump in.
So
there.
I'm gonna give Fabian, if you would like the last word here. We're running out of time, but please, definitely. I know, Fabian, go ahead. Please give us your thoughts on this.
Well, I just wanted to say quick, because what I was taught immediately when I jumped into philosophy is that it is the father of all subjects. So when we talk about other things like science and other, you know, it goes back to philosophy. A philosopher started this conversation and turns into religion, it turns into science, it turns into all these different subjects. Philosophy is like the umbrella that covers it all. And that's how I see it. So when it's all connected to me, it's always been one.
I think that you're absolutely right about that. You know, one of my favorite quotes is from the great pragmatist philosopher William James, who wrote that, you know, while it seems like we're separate, right? We're islands in the sea. In fact, in the deep, we're all connected. And he was a great philosopher of religion, as well as an epistemologist. So thank you for that reflection, and thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you to our audience. I'm going to go ahead and share my little slideshow with you one more time, and to say thank you to our panelists, thank you to all of the students who came to the talk. I really appreciate your discussing these really urgent questions with us. I hope that you came away from this conversation with something that can help you to center yourself, to make it through these next couple of months. And I hope that you continue these conversations with us. I'd like to invite you, if you haven't taken them already, to consider joining us in our philosophy of religion and ethics and moral issues classes. We dive into all of these issues in great detail, and we would absolutely love to have you with us for that. So thank you, and yeah, we'll be inviting you to the next event coming up in just a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so good seeing everyone.
Thank you for having me.